US President Donald Trump has said that he's pausing attacks on Iran's energy plants for 10 days.
Well, at the Iranian government's request, they said that talks with Tehran are going very well.
Well, in a post on Truth Social, Trump said that he's pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days. And this is till Monday, which is April 6th. He further added that despite erroneous statements by the contrary, the talks with Iran are going pretty well.
Earlier, Trump held his first cabinet meeting since Iran war, where he spoke a lengthy on various aspects. He said Iran is begging to make a deal with the US. This even as he reiterated obliterating Iran's Navy, Air Force, missile arsenal and defense military base.
Smaller version of what we're doing now. We're crushing their missiles and drone stockpiles, destroying their defense industrial base. We've wiped out their Navy completely, their Air Force completely. We've wiped out a large percentage of their missiles, and the missile launchers. Without the launchers, the missiles don't do.
Well, Donald Trump also said that Iranian leaders are finding it hard to communicate with each other as their first and second tier leadership is gone now. Listen to this.
Nobody's a match for the United States, but they're not a match for the United States. It's small potatoes. That's why I'm so disappointed in NATO, because this was a test for NATO. This was a test. You can help us. You don't have to, but if you don't if you don't do that, we're going to remember.
Trump said that Iran now has the chance to abandon their nuclear ambitions. He warned that US is Iran's worst nightmare and that Washington can keep the strikes going unimpeded.
They now have the chance, that is Iran, to permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions and to chart a new path forward. We'll see if they want to do it. If they don't, we're their worst nightmare. In the meantime, we'll just keep blowing them away, unimpeded, unstopped. Well, there's not a thing they can do about it. They can't do anything about it, I tell you, if they could, you'd be hearing about it. You'd be hearing about it. You don't hear anything about it.
And on the Strait of Hormuz, Donald Trump said that US doesn't need Hormuz to fulfill its energy needs. However, he said that it will require 100% success rate to open the strait. Even one missile hitting a billion-dollar ship is unacceptable.
The problem with the straits is this. Let's say we do a great job. We say we got 99%. 1% is unacceptable, because 1% is a missile going into the hull of a ship that cost $1 billion, right? So 1% is we can't. If we do a 99% decimation, that's no good.
The US president told reporters that taking control of Iran's oil was an option, but said that he would not talk about it. He further claimed that the Tehran's present to him was allowing 8 big boats of oil to pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
There are 8 boats that are going right up the middle of the Hormuz Strait. 8 big tankers are going loaded up with oil right through. And I said, well, I guess they were right, and they were real. And I think they were Pakistani flagged. Yes. And I said, well, I guess we're dealing with the right people. And actually, they then apologized for something they said, and they said, we're going to send 2 more boats. And it ended up being 10 boats. All right. I hope I haven't screwed up your negotiations, but I thought it was appropriate to say, because I did taunt you the other day by saying they're going to give us a present.
And to discuss more, we are now being joined by Adrian Calamil. He's a fellow at Arabian Peninsula Institute and Terrorism in West Asia scholar. Adrian is joining us live from New York. Always a pleasure to have you with us, Adrian. Now, we're hearing these conflicting claims come out from Washington and Tehran, where now Washington has extended its pause on strikes by 10 days, where Iran still continues to maintain that it's not engaged in negotiations. How do you read this contradiction?
Well, good morning to you, first of all. And yeah, it's really bizarre, to tell you the truth. And I hate to say this, but I actually believe more of the messaging coming out of the Islamic Republic at this point. I say it, and I'll frame it this way. I don't think Trump was ever serious about hitting the electrical grid, the power grid, and putting the nation in a complete blackout. He's been pretty clear in some of the targets that he hasn't selected, such as the Artesh, which is the National Army, and some of the other power grids. And then he was very upset with Israel for hitting South Pars, which is a shared oil field or gas field with Qatar. And so he's always looked at a day after plan, and hitting that grid, I think it was done out of a place of anger. It was after, I think it was over 100 civilians were killed in Israel. There was the launch on Diego Garcia, a missile that could also hit New Delhi, London, Moscow, 2,500 miles. And, he did this. We know he's prone to making these statements. I think he made this statement out of anger, and it wasn't wise. Now, having said that, I think he's saying these negotiations are taking place, sitting back, taking a look at the Strait of Hormuz for what he has said that he hasn't heard any noise out of the Islamic Republic. Well, the Strait of Hormuz is a lot of noise. I think he's trying to figure out, looking at that, and also trying to sow discontent within the regime. This is a regime that is paranoid to begin with, and then this war has only turned them even more paranoid. And then you'll have certain elements within the IRGC wondering, who's talking to Trump and through what back channels, and what is going on. So it almost seems like a bit of disinformation on the part of the president, is my reading of it. I could be wrong.
Right, and President Trump has interpreted the passage of 8 to 10 tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, which he calls as a gift. So how did this event impact his 15-point plan?
Well, it's interesting because and that's a great question. I believe they were Pakistani flagged tankers. So if they're going to be flagged for countries that, China, Pakistan, other countries, they're going to let them go through. I don't see how this is a big concession on the part of Trump in seeing this as a gift. And in working with this 15-point plan, a lot of it is still very nebulous. We know about the nuclear program. We know about the ballistic missiles. We know about the terror proxy funding. But beyond that, there needs the drone manufacturing. There's going to be other details, but it's still very murky as far as what's in that plan. But I will say this, is that the regime, the very fact that they're closing off the Strait of Hormuz shows that they really have very little leverage left at this point. This was their last card. One of their last cards to play is to try and cripple the global economy. And if and when it gets cleared up, then the regime's going to be facing further difficulties.
Right, we hear you, Adrian. And speaking of the 15-point plan, we understand that Washington wants Iran to roll back its nuclear program, its missiles and proxy groups in the region, which Iran has flatly rejected and has even called them excessive. Instead, Iran has listed out its own conditions. And of course, those conditions are going to be a hard pill, a bitter pill to swallow for Washington and its allies. But the impasse is just becoming more clear as we go ahead. Both sides want an end, but their terms seem to be mutually exclusive at this point. Is that how you read it as well, or do you think one side will have to blink first?
No, I think you're exactly right, Diksha. I think that's the situation, is that, the regime they say they have an inalienable right to enrich and reprocess, and the rest of the world knows that when you enrich and reprocess, those countries produce a nuclear weapon. They've been unwielding on that, the ballistic missiles as well, and then the proxies. That's a whole other issue. But just on the nuclear issue, they will fail on that, and the United States is not going to allow this to happen. So you're right. This is a collision course.